This is my winter workshop, and to get at these valves you have to remove this, which is your breather cover, and you have to remove this, which is your valve cover. This one needs new gaskets. Obviously, you should always plan on replacing the gaskets when you do these. They're available at your Suzuki dealer. Also, when you pull this off, this is flat here, and there's a gasket, a little half moon gasket right here. You can see these are leaking. This one here. So you can get those at your Suzuki dealer. They're OEM parts, about $3 each. And so now on to the tools you need. So you're going to need feeler gauges. And if you can see here, I have mine all taken off of the holder thingy. So the valve clearance on these is about 1/1000th of an inch. That's 1.5 thousandths. I just have them all laid out in a row in order, so it makes it easier to work. And these are the shims. So these cost about $10 a piece. This is a 2.35 mil, and this tells you right here I've been converting to inches. So here is a new one. This is genuine Suzuki parts, and this is going to be a 2.45 mil. Plus, these things have really cool packaging, which I've been saving. So these shims come in packaging, which I think looks really cool. And I might even go so far as to frame a few of these. So once you remove the breather cover and the valve cover and the horn, which hangs down in here, you need to get that out of the way. And also you can see I've tied back the spark plug wires to get those out of the way. And you pull this down here. This is your ignition cover. This bike has CDI ignition, so no points needed. And then you need a 19 mil wrench. You put it right here. Okay, so we have this rotated over here. So you see there's kind of two things in here. This part right here is the shim. It sticks up a little bit out of the bucket. See how this can turn? You can turn the shim and the bucket, which you need to do because the only way to get this here shim out is to find the notch. So now you can see I'm rotating the whole shim and bucket, which tells us that there's clearance between the cam and the shim. And there it is, there's the slot. And this is where you can pry and lift the shim out of the bucket. So we are going to work on this intake. See, there's my awesome new Mikuni carburetors with my vastly oversized K&N air filters, which I love. So there's our little spot right here where we can pry it out. And so what you do is you rotate this with your good old 19 mil wrench. So now the cam is going to push the whole business down. You definitely need your shim adjusting tool, which you can find many places online. They're about $15, and you notice that it's thin here, and the further around you get, the thicker it is. So what you do is you lower the whole thing. You lower the shim and the bucket with the cam, and then you slide this thing in like this. Okay, so I just slid that in there, and you have to have it resting on the case to give yourself enough clearance. And then the other thing you do, slightly tricky, is you have to have the bottom of the tool only on the bucket, not on the shim. So now I'm going to back this up, and you'll see if I get it right, which I didn't. I'll try again. So as you can see here, there's lots of gap between the cam and the shim now, and that tool is resting in just the right place. Sometimes you have to try it once or twice. There's a little space here on the cam where you're, I don't know if you're exactly centered, but maybe a little right of center, inboard of center. And you definitely need to have this resting on the case, otherwise it won't work. You can't do it with the tool resting, you know, forward or behind the edge, and it has to be on the inside. So I'm going to show you what the clearance is right now with my feeler gauges. So here's a 3/1000 gauge. That goes right under there nice and easy. It's bigger than that. Remember, we want 1/1000. I'm going to jump up to 5/1000. I think this is about what it's at. This is just a little tension between, you know, when you pull it along, it's just a little, it's not too tight. So now I'm going to put in my 6/1000 gauge, and you'll see that doesn't go in. So right now I'm going to say that's about 5/1000. So now we'll pull out the valve, or rather the shim, which is right here. Bucket, nice and loose, because the cam is not touching it because we have 5/1000 clearance. And this shim will come out and we'll see what size it is. Shim out of here. And I'm going to give you all the caveat that you should not be using metal pliers, which I am using. Get this thing up in the air. You can see that the tool is really close to it. Might even snap shut. But there it is. That's where you got to move it up to get it out. And I'm using these pliers to have a nice angle. So if I let that go, it might drop. So it's still trial and error here. So trying to be as gentle as possible. Grab that shim, snake it out. Ta-da! And we see that it is a 2.30 shim. So as you can see here, I'm kind of keeping track of my shim thicknesses in millimeters and inches. And that's 0.103, that's 0.104. So they're about 1,000th to 2,000ths difference. Here's 2.45, that's 0.96, call it 0.97, 97 thousandths. Now we're getting thinner. This is 94 thousandths. So that time we jumped about 3 thousandths rather, 0.003 inches. Here's 2.35 mil. That's now we're down to 0.092. And here's the one I just pulled out. And I'm going to put that right here. So this is like, I must be brain dead to need to do this, but nonetheless, this is my system. Okay, so this is where I was getting in trouble. So we'll see how this works. I just took the shim out, and it was about, we measured it about 5/1000ths too fat, or 4/1000ths. So this one is 2/1000ths thicker. And this one is 4/1000ths thicker. So this should be our shim right here, Mr. 2.40. Also, I would mention that the new shims I bought are not uniform in diameter, because sometimes they fit pretty tightly into the buckets, and sometimes they just drop right in the way they should. Okay, so the 2.40 shim, 2.40 mil, which is 94 thousandths, 0.094 inches. is about to go in, and you just want to make sure that you put the numbers down. That's the way they were when I opened it up, and I assume that is going to be correct. Okay, now I'm going to drop in the shim, the 240, and I'm going to put the number down. And they will tend to want to just slide right through and out the back, so I use my screwdriver. This is one of those tight shims I told you about. You should just drop right in there. But this one is a little tight, so I had to push it down a little. Now it's in. There's no mistaking when it's in. And now I'm going to rotate my camshaft, and that relieves the pressure on the tool, and now I can pull it up. And what I'm going to actually do is rotate it a couple times with the thought that I just want to make sure it's seated. One more time. You can see the wear. I don't know if you can see the wear on the cams. These are old. This bike has about 25,000 miles on it. You can see the wear on the cam there. Some parts are more polished. And then, one more time. We'll give it a measure. Get it pointed right straight up, like that. And we'll see what happens. So, our wonderful math on the shims looks like it worked. This is, see it. Anyway. Trust me when I tell you this is 1.5 thousandths. And that goes in just a little drag. So I'm going to try the 2 thousandths. 2 thousandths. And that does not fit. So that tells us good times, happy times. We got our valve clearance below 2 thousandths. And remember, the correct setting is right about 1 thousandth. So this will conclude our valve adjustment video. And see, everything's there. This is our cam chain. Down here is the cam chain tension adjuster, which I've never touched. So that is it for now.